Our next storyteller is Kenny Abbott, and a lot of you have connections with him, and I just met him. We met because he offered to be a storyteller for this event, and that's really how a lot of these connections happen. I'm really happy that he reached out because it's building more of those communities together and making it greater and just even more, to be cheesy, powerful, right? You know, this is where this comes from. So our next raconteur, right? Teacher here, I got used to the thesaurus at some point. He, if I may so read our introduction, may be known locally as a sporadic co-host of Open Road Radio with Gina Woods. He's a former Superbike racer, Formula USA, and Championship Cup Series race event promoter and producer. Along with other things, he's worked directly with Dunlop Tires and was the GM of the Michael Jordan Motorsports Superbike race team. So, yeah, huge round of applause for this. He has worked with Craftsman Tools on some of the original Facebook Live broadcasts. He's been the public address announcer for Superbike and flat track races all over the country and is now one of the announcers at the World Center of Racing, Daytona International Speedway. Yeah. Please give it up. Please welcome the race man, Kenny Abbott.
Oh my gosh. So, one of the things that Louise left out of her story, if I may share, is after all of that turmoil, she won her first race this year. And I actually had the pleasure of calling that race this season, and it was a pretty tough race. There was 4 or 5 racers all together. She's the only female in the group, and she won it on the coming out of the last turn on the last lap. Yeah. Well done. Yeah. She's a little too shy to share that herself, but I was like, can I share that you actually won your first race after all of that? So yeah, so thanks so much, Season, for having me here. The story actually was that when you guys did that event in Cincinnati, my friend Les, who has the power sports store there, was part of that event somehow. He sent me a bunch of pictures and says, hey, you should be a speaker at this thing. I was like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? And he goes, just send a message to Season and she'll tell you about it. So okay, and so that's how it came to be. So thanks for my friends for coming out. But so I'm storyteller number 59.
Well, one of the 58. I included tonight's storytellers in that number. So,
gotcha.
Yeah.
So it was funny because I'm a numbers guy, and there was one of the people who used to race for me, Jake Holden, was number 59. I was like, wow, that's kind of funny, me being 59 and him having 59. So the numbers don't work anyhow. So.
I can double count some of our repeat storytellers, so you could be.
There you go. We'll figure out the numbers later. But for a lot of people I know, public speaking is high anxiety. I totally get that. I myself had a lot of anxiety, growing up. Super shy, stuff like that. Someone convinced me that because I was injured, I should be sit in the announcer booth with them and be an announcer. I said, no, like wrong guy. And so it's turned into this whole thing. And it was the epiphany for me was I used to go to the racetrack and spend all my money, and now I sit up in a tower all day with a microphone and they write me a check. I was like, oh, I get that. I totally get that. So my anxiety tonight is, usually I'm used to wandering up and down pit road or sitting in a tower watching timing and scoring and all that good stuff. And, I'm used to talking for 10 hours a day for 3 days straight. I'm still recovering from Daytona, which was last week. So I do have cough drops. I'm still recovering. I apologize. So my anxiety is actually that I only have 20 minutes. As my family and friends would testify, I'm that guy that just talks to everybody all day and never shuts up. So I do apologize. I will keep it brief. But are there any Harley riders in the crowd? Anybody riding a Harley? I'm sure we it's okay. It's all right. I think we can provide counseling. just see Season or myself at the end, and I think we have a financial planner as well to help take care of the repair costs and stuff like that. So but it's okay, we'll be all right. So inspired by all the stories so far. The story of just riding cross country just because it was just something you wanted to do. I mean, it's so fantastic. Who remembers their first motorcycle? Everyone remembers their first motorcycle, right? Who's still on their first motorcycle? Are you really? Fantastic, good for you. My first motorcycle, this is gonna date me a bit. My first motorcycle was when I turned 16 in 1985. I bought a brand new 1985 RZ350. You might be the only one in the crowd that knows what that is. Red and white Kenny Roberts, yellow and black Kenny Roberts version.
Rap.
Ding, 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 ding. Yep. It was a ring ding, it actually used bean oil and everything else, the sweetest smell in motorsports. But my dad helped me go to the local Yamaha shop to buy that motorcycle just a couple days after my 16th birthday because I dropped his motorcycle. I didn't crash it, I literally dropped it. I took it out and rode it around, and we went out and got my motorcycle license, got all that stuff sorted out, and then I was pulling up in front of our house, which was on a pitch, and it was super top heavy. It was actually a 1982 Honda CR500 Deluxe with a big windjammer fairing on the front. You know exactly what that is.
I did exactly.
All right, so we're there.
I threw a lot of those in the trash.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's kind of what I did. I dropped it, and then he never rode it again. So he's like, let's go get you a motorcycle. So we go to the local Yamaha shop, and that's what I got. Well, a couple days later, my buddy, Chris, we called him Rat because his the first time he when him and his family moved into the neighborhood, he had a Rat t-shirt on. Anyone know who that is besides my wife?
Yes.
Yeah, old rock and roll band, Rat. Well, for some reason we couldn't remember that his name was Chris. Yeah, 2 T's. Yep, 2 T's. Yep. So for whatever reason we couldn't remember that his name was Chris. We just always remembered Rat, so he became Rat to us. And so Rat comes up and says, "Hey, they got races like an hour from here in West Virginia." So at the time I lived right outside Washington D.C. If you've ever flown in and out of there, Dulles Airport is out there. I lived a few miles from Dulles Airport. Used to work at Dulles Airport for like a month. But anyway, he was like, "There's a races that are like an hour from here up in West Virginia." It was sort of between Charlestown, West Virginia, and Winchester, Virginia. So a little place called Summit Point Raceway. There's actually 3 racetracks there now. Yes? Did you have a question? Oh, you're stretching. Okay. Oh, got it. Sorry. New lingo. She's like, yeah, Summit Point Raceway. It's Summit Point Raceway is in beautiful Summit Point, West Virginia. But anyway, that's where I grew up racing. The 1 year story for me was Rat comes and he says, "Hey, there's this place, but they start at 7 in the morning." I'm like, "Okay, great. Well, let's go." So 6 o'clock in the morning, we ride out, ride up through the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains, and get to Summit Point, West Virginia, about 7 a.m. Pull up at the little guard shack, and the guy says, "Are you on the list?" I don't know. Maybe. And he goes, "Okay, well, let me check. Nope, you're not on the list. I'll write you in." Okay. Great. Kenny, Rat.
God bless the A's.
Yeah, exactly. Do you know where everybody's meeting? Nope, no idea. Oh, okay, we'll just turn left here and you go across the bridge and go to the other end of the paddock. You'll see everybody at the cafe in white. Oh, okay, great. So we ride in there and there's like 70, 80 corner workers in there, all having breakfast, passing out t-shirts and sweatshirts and all that kind of stuff, getting ready for a day of corner working at beautiful Summit Point Raceway. And they see these 2 Groms, floating in, like, "Who are these guys? Hey, are you guys working with us today?" We're like, okay. So they give us a couple t-shirts. We throw some white t-shirts on, like, "You're going to be working at turn 5 with so-and-so, and you're going to be at turn whatever with that guy." And that was kind of the beginning of the addiction for me. We're literally standing trackside with very well-connected and well-trained corner workers, and they were teaching us what they knew about corner working, corner marshaling at the racetrack. So there's race bikes going by me. I'd never seen this before. Hadn't seen it on TV. Hadn't been anywhere around it. And there's race bikes going 20 feet from me, hundreds of miles an hour. And I'm like, this is the best seat in the house. I'm doing this again. And so the day ends, and we're like, this is fantastic. And they're going, are you coming back tomorrow? We're like, yeah, should we be here earlier? And they said, you could actually camp. And we're like, no way, you can camp too? So this started the addiction of motorcycle camping. We would ride our motorcycles to the racetrack. We would camp. We would corner work both days. They would feed us breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We got free clothes. Like, it doesn't get much better than that, does it? Really? So this started that addiction, and most of the time when I was corner working, I couldn't hear the PA system, but what I came to find out was that they actually had a road racing school, which was part of the same organization as the corner working program that we were with. And I was like, road racing school, that sounds fantastic. So I can take the school and I get my license and I can do that too. I'm in. So Rat and I sign up for the school, we take the school, and we got our license that weekend at Summit Point, West Virginia. The next weekend, I went to a WERA race, so that was a CCS race, Championship Cup Series. And the next weekend, we went to a WERA race. I got my WERA license at Rockingham Speedway the next weekend, and so on starts the addiction. The regional championships back then, they would have about 10 CCS regional races and about 10 WERA races, and they were spread around the East Coast. So Summit Point, Rolling Road in Savannah, Georgia, Atlanta, Talladega, Daytona Beach. And so we would travel around. We would do about 20, 25 races a year between the two organizations, just kind of bouncing around, spending all of our money, living, mom and dad's basement, but, living out our dream, right? And at the races or at some of the, I hadn't ascended to the national races yet, so we would go to the nationals, or we would go watch, or we would go camp. And so this kind of started this whole addiction of, if I'm not racing, how do I get in for free? I can corner work, right? My tire vendor, Dunlop at the time, yes ma'am?
What do corner workers do?
Oh, corner workers, so they literally stand on every corner. So in a road race track, for instance, Summit Point Raceway, they had 10 turns, 10 corners. The local racetrack here in beautiful South Beloit has 7 corners. And so the corner workers stand on the corner. If there's a problem, they wave flags to give you warnings. They have communication with a tower. And so the corner workers provide the safety. They're the safety crew for the racetracks. They're very, very hard to find. They actually get paid pretty well now because they're hard to find. Some people make a living doing nothing but corner working, bouncing around, $7,500 a day. But it's a great way to get into the racetrack for free and be part of the action. And I think a lot of those corner workers end up making friends with a lot of the racers and stuff, and it's just part of that. I'm going to use the word fraternity, even though there's a lot of females involved in that. I'm not an English teacher, my wife is. So that's the only word I know of to bring all that together. But anyway, high school English teacher too. You're a high school teacher, right? Yeah. Sorority. There we go. Sorority, fraternity. So anyway, it's a great group of people that come together. So whether it's the racers, the corner workers, the track staff, you find a really good community there. Outside of maybe fraternities and sororities and work, it's hard to find those types of friends. It's a lot like military. Is anybody in here in the military? You tend to trust your life with other people. You bond in a different way, and so motorcycling has done that, I think, for a lot of us. And so anyway, just one of those things. So anyway, so Rat and I are now like traveling around, racing around the East Coast and making friends, and we just find ourselves in all of these crazy situations, and we're constantly telling stories. And the stories aren't necessarily just from being at the racetrack. It's the travel. It's to and from, right? I mean, has anyone here been stuck in Lizard Lick, North Carolina? I have. I can tell you every building in that town. it's an intersection. And at 11 o'clock at night, nothing's open. So it's not the best place to be stranded with a bad radiator, with no water available. But that was us. We got stuck in Lizard Lick on the way to Road Atlanta. On the way back from Talladega one year, we actually, someone gave us their van. He was like, hey, use my van. Great idea. Until it's like breaking down on the way back. Going, what a horrible idea. Who agreed to this? So I think that what we find in motorcycling or traveling, whatever it is that there's all these stories. It's the stories to and from. It's the stories of, of us hanging out together. And, for the 1 year story for me was, sort of learning all of these different facets of the motorsports industry, the motorcycle racing industry in general, and just how you can participate in different ways, even if you're not racing, even if you're not corner working, and you don't just have to be a fan, but you can be immersed in the culture and find your own little niche in the things that you enjoy, and just have a blast. Everyone rides something different, right? Some people have Harleys. I'm sorry. I know they're expensive. I congratulate your commitment. From the dual sport bikes, and I was one of those people. I started working at a Honda shop, and the owners were like, you should really ride one of these Goldwings. I was like, absolutely not. There's no way I'm ever gonna ride that Goldwing. Can anyone guess what I own today? We both own it because it was so flippin' expensive. We decided, so I had another motorcycle. We decided we were going to take a trip to Sturgis, and we weren't going to do it on the motorcycle that I had. So 2015, Honda came out with this slick version of the Goldwing. We bought that. We still have it. So I do have that. So on top of the other things that I've ridden and raced and ridden on the racetrack and all of that, we do have the Batwing. But it's been a blast. So back to the first year, I know it's a rabbit hole for that. Yeah. So but anyway, so the first year we traveled and went all over the place, and what I found was, I went to corner work at the Loudon Classic in New Hampshire. I got to go to Daytona International Speedway for the first time, and just got introduced to so many different things. And what I would encourage you to do is take those motorcycle trips, hook up with this guy, figure out where he's going next, and go with him wherever he's going. You know what I mean? Yeah, figure out where he's gonna go for his vintage stuff, and just go, and just really become, and come out and see Louise race. I mean, she's amazing. The unfortunate part is that you got to listen to me all weekend, but it's a lot of fun. I try to make it fun. I try to have fun with the racers. I try to interview them and let them thank their sponsors and their families, stuff like that. But in a year's time for me, I traveled all over the East Coast and was immersed in all these different motorcycle cultures, right? When we were at Daytona, there was amateur racing for a week, and then there was vintage racing for 3 days, and then there was super bikes, and then there was supercross, and then there was more super bikes. And I was like, holy crap, this is 2 weeks of nothing but motorcycling. And by the way, when you're not at the speedway, you're at the beach, you're on Main Street, there's something else going on. They have vendors out front, they're doing test rides so you can ride all the new motorcycles and stuff. It's just one of those things. And so in a year's time, I found myself racing, building a peer group that I felt like I could trust my life with them, which is really hard, which is, as you guys know, is just kind of really hard to do, to find those types of groups where you can connect in that way. But that first motorcycle for me was so instrumental in opening my world to travel and motorcycling. So I'm 16 years old, right? Still in high school. My parents were working all the time, so I was like a latchkey kid, right? Everybody know what that is?
Yeah.
Right, we were one, right? So So, I come home from school, I get on my motorcycle, we leave, I come back when it's dark, right? Have dinner and do it the next day. But what I found was that motorcycle opened up so many different things. So I'm 16 years old, I'm traveling around the East Coast by myself really, with my friends, and just opening up whole new worlds. And here we are, almost, do the math. Where's the math teacher? 40 some years later, right? Science. It's still math and science. So 1985 to now, it's been a long time, and I've been a racer. I'm a rider coach. I find people like Louise and go, hey, how can I help you go faster? Are you open to me giving you some coaching? And so I get an opportunity to use the skills that I've learned and developed over the years from paying attention to other people who wanted to be my mentors, right? And I'm able to just kind of pass that data, a lot of data points, able to pass that data along to other people and help them figure out how can I do this easier? How can I use less energy? How can I go faster? And I just love doing that. But a year of just complete immersion from 1985 to 1986/1987, I found myself in the same room as professional motorcycle superbike road racers. I found myself in the room with people who run factory race teams, people who develop race tires, and I found myself, 40 years later now, just looking back on all of those experiences that were opened because, I don't know why I'm emotional, but they were open because my dad was like, you need your own motorcycle. Yes, I do. Let's make that happen. I paid for it. I had a job. He was like, you can afford it? I was like, yes, I can. So he's like, let's go do it. And that's what we did. So, I appreciate the lessons and the lifestyle that it's provided for us. And I can, as everyone knows, I can talk for days. I literally get paid to do that. But for your benefit, I'll wrap up. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. It's my first time at the Hideout, my first time here with Blah 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 Motorcycles, my first time here at Storytellers, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
It's amazing what a year can produce, isn't it? I mean, it's just phenomenal to think of just the growth that happens in 1 year. And cheese on Pete's. Cheese and beats.
Cheese and beats.
Cheese and beats. It's the new phrase. Pick it up, adopt it. I just developed this with one of my students on Friday. They didn't understand when I said cheese. What's the real phrase? Cheese-o beats? No, cheese-o beats? Oh my gosh.
Cheese and beats.
It's not really all I can say is cheese and beats. So, cheese and beats. Just hashtag cheese and beats. A year's growth is phenomenal. And thank you so much for telling your story, being 16 in 1985. I can't even imagine. You must have been close to that. The brother. I mean, you gotta throw the brother under the bus at some point, right? So, thank you so much. Rayman, we appreciate having you here and on this stage. It is an emotional place to be. It's oddly emotional to be up here.